Lansing's only sports station. The Game, 7:30.
Let's play.
Two sets of twins help their teams to state titles, and one basketball power completes the quadfecta. I'm John Ross, and this is This Week in High School Sports, powered by Michigan Student Aid. The first of two great weekends of basketball at the Breslin Center in East Lansing is in the books, and four boys basketball teams are now MHSAA champions.
For the first time since 2000, Orchard Lake St. Mary's basketball state champions. The job is finished. The message coming in this weekend was we are here on a business trip to finish what we started last year, and they have officially finished it.
That was Eric Vanderpfeifer of the MHSAA Championship Radio Network with the call as Orchard Lake St. Mary's knocked off North Farmington in the Division I final. Junior sensation Trey McKinney led the Eaglets with 32 points and 10 rebounds. St. Mary's has now won boys basketball titles in four different classes: Division I, Class B, Class C, and Class D. Niles Brandywine captured its first boys basketball title, this coming in Division III. The Bobcats beat Detroit Old Redford 56-48. Jeremiah Palmer had 18 points and 6 rebounds in the victory. His twin brother Jameer Palmer chipped in with 8 points and 3 assists. This game was close at halftime, but Brandywine outscored Old Redford by 15 in the third quarter to pull away. It's time for Game Balls, when we highlight a trio of standout performances from the past week. This time, we're highlighting some girls basketball regional titles. First, Vicksburg won its first regional title. The Bulldogs beat Grand Rapids South Christian 49-34 to earn that regional trophy. Also winning a first regional title, Rochester Hills Stony Creek. Sarah LaPrairie had 32 in the 59-45 win over Macomb, Dakota. And Tecumseh had won a regional title before, but not since 1975. They defeated defending Division II champion Lansing Catholic 56-52 to hold up a regional trophy for the first time in nearly 50 years.
For high school seniors, the matchup of the year isn't on the court. It's actually online. That's right. When you fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, you could also be eligible for thousands of dollars in additional money from the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. Now that's a matchup we can all root for. Get started today at michigan.gov/achievement. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship. It's a game changer.
Our weekly Be the Referee feature takes a look at the fine art of officiating with registered official Paige Winnie.
When watching a college or NBA game, the last 2 minutes of the game can seem like it takes forever, especially in recent years where more and more judgment calls made by officials are subject to instant replay. At the high school level, video is not used to make a ruling or confirm or overturn a call made during the course of the contest. The only time video review is used in basketball at the high school level is at the MHSAA semifinal and final games. In these games, video review can be used only to determine if a shot was released in time at the end of the fourth quarter or overtime, or if that shot was a 2-point or 3-point field goal attempt. The MHSAA believes that this very limited use of replay in these games at the very end of the tournament series in boys and girls basketball is the right call.
Thanks, Paige. Now more than ever, we need officials. If you're interested, please go to the MHSAA website now to register. Back to the Breslin Center.
Moses Blackwell has it as the clock expires. Blackwell throws the ball up in the air, and Warren Lincoln celebrates the first ever boys basketball championship in school history.
Denny Cap of the MHSAA Championship Radio Network there as Warren Lincoln won its first boys basketball title 53-39 over Grand Rapids Christian in the Division II title game. The Abes, yes, the Warren Lincoln Abes, what a great nickname, got 24 points from Marcus Blackwell and another dozen from his twin brother Moses in the win. And in Division IV, Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian beat Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart 79-59, winning its sixth boys basketball title under head coach Mark Keeler. The defenders had all 5 starters go for double digits, and Keaton Blanker added 12 assists. For more on all 4 title games, please check out MHSAA.com. You've been listening to This Week in High School Sports, powered by Michigan Student Aid, a production of the MHSAA Network. This is the final installment for the 23-24 school year. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Ross, and we'll be back in the fall.
WVFN.
And a good Saturday morning to everyone out there here in the mid-Michigan area. It is state final Saturday in the Michigan High School Girls Basketball Championship. And you're going to hear the games coming up here at the top of the next hour. About 9:50 or so is when airtime is for the MHSAA Network. But before that, this is High School Rewind. This is the weekly show that recaps boys and girls basketball in the mid-Michigan area. And this one will be a little bit different because, the state finals for boys was last week. And, of course, state finals for girls are coming up today, starting with the Division IV championship game at 10 o'clock, where Ishpeming will take on Kingston. Ishpeming took out Fowler on Thursday night, and you heard that game here on WVFN in the semifinals. Ishpeming was just too good right from the start, showing why they're 27-1 on the season. What a performance by Jenna Mackey for Ishpeming. 30 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. She was 11 for 22 from the field. Just an outstanding performance. It was 23-6 Ishpeming at the end of the first quarter, and they just carried it out from there. It was just they cruised to an surprisingly easy 75-40 win over Fowler in that one. We'll talk a little more about that later. But congratulations to Fowler for just getting to the Breslin Center. This is their 5th straight trip to at least the semifinals. They lost last year in the semifinals and lost this year in the semifinals. But the 2 years before that, they were state champs. And in 2019, that was the first of this state semifinal run. They lost to eventual state champ Adrian Lenaway Christian. But let's start with the good stuff for Fowler. On Tuesday night, they got out to a big lead at Goebbels High School against Mendon. They hit 7 3-pointers in the first quarter as a team. Got out to an 11-0 start and were leading 23-5 at the end of the first quarter. And used their pressure defense to really mess up Mendon. And they eventually, I like what Nathaniel Bott of the LHA said, they cruised to a 51-32 win. It sounds like that pretty much is what happened there. And Katie Spicer had 17 points to lead Fowler in that victory. And that got them to the semifinals again. And then not so fortunate against Ishpeming. But, man, give credit to Ishpeming. That's obviously an outstanding team. Anybody that beats Fowler, one of the best Division IV programs in the state, anybody that beats them 75-40, that team that beat Fowler by that much is an outstanding team in their own right. And, man, that was just absolutely impressive to listen to on Thursday night. And congrats to head coach Nathan George. And they just weren't good enough against Ishpeming. But, hey, another great season for them. As far as other action, well, there was really only one other team that was alive, and that was the Holt Lady Rams. And Holt, man, I was at this game at Jackson Lumen Christi High School, and Holt, they were the better team for 3 quarters. They had the lead at the end of the first quarter, 14-8. They had the lead at halftime, 21-17. They had the lead at the end of the third quarter, 32-27. But then Belleville forced some turnovers, and they were able to make some shots. They were able to get to the free throw line enough, and they out-rebounded Holt. That was a big, big key, 34-25. Holt helped them out. They missed a few layups, a couple in the first half that they needed to make. And even despite that, it was tight. It was tight all the way through. But I had been hearing about this really good freshman that Belleville has, Sydney Savory. Well, I can see why. After watching her play, she's just a freshman, and she made some ninth grade plays, freshman plays. But, man, 23 points, 13 rebounds, 2 block shots as a freshman. Pretty impressive. And she got just enough help from some other teammates like Ryland Bichelle, who had 9 points, Jordan Peterson, who had 7 points and 7 rebounds. Daria Shelby only had 2 points on the night, but she had 7 big rebounds. Again, part of that 34-25 rebounding edge for Belleville, the Tigers of Bellevue out of the Kensington Lakes Conference. But Holt, another great run to the quarterfinals, 2 straight years to the quarterfinals. Rama Dozier, sorry, get her name right. She had a great tournament run, struggled a little bit on Tuesday night at Lumen Christi. She only had 9 points. She had 7 in the first half, but only had 2 points after that. Looked like Belleville was guarding her a bit more tightly and did a very good job on her. Allie Metzger had 12 points, 4 rebounds. Presley Pazitka had 7 rebounds. She didn't score. That was a factor. But the future of this program, and Edwin Jones said this to me and said last week on this program, and he also said it to the LSJ. Olivia Gadsden, just a freshman. She is the future of this program, and now she is the present. Man, what a good player she is. Olivia Gadsden had 8 points on the night on Tuesday. Rama Dozier, 9 points. Claire Tobias, 5 points and 5 rebounds. And they had opportunities. They had a chance maybe to force overtime, maybe to win it in regulation. But, man, once Belleville got the lead, and they got the lead with about 5 minutes to go. It was only it was a 5-point game. Holt was leading 32-27 at the end of 3 quarters. But they were able to get the lead early in the 4th quarter. And when they got the lead with about 5 minutes to go, they started playing keep away. You know, with the foul rule that you have now with fouls per quarter instead of fouls per half, kind of changes what you got to do. I've seen a lot more teams, both boys and girls, start to play keep away. Not go to a full-on stall, but start to play keep away. If they've got even a 2-point lead with 5 minutes to go, make them come guard you and then make them foul you eventually. So teams have kind of adjusted. And I believe, it's just my opinion, I believe with the foul rule that you got now, 5 fouls per quarter, if you're down to start a 4th quarter, in most cases, might as well pressure. And if you commit a foul or 2, so be it. That way it takes fewer fouls later on in the game to get a team into the bonus, stop the clock, make them shoot free throws. The NBA actually passed a rule to kind of prevent that from happening. You know how they always say, if you watch an NBA game, they say if a foul occurs under 2 minutes to go, sometimes you hear them say first in the last 2 minutes. That means that a team has committed fewer than 3 fouls in the quarter before that. So once you get under 2 minutes to go, let's say you commit like 1 team foul, and then you commit another one in under 2 minutes to go. Well, that's only your second team foul. But the NBA passed a rule where it's the first in the last 2 minutes, and then the next one puts you in the penalty. Maybe the MHSA or the National Federation should think about doing that to kind of stop that from happening, and would make the end of games more dramatic because they've taken away the 1-and-1 free throws, which was really dramatic. And maybe that's something they would think about in the future. But again, that's not the MHSA's call. That's the National Federation's call on that. So Holt got to the semifinals. Or got to the quarterfinals and lost. They end their season at 18-9, but that program is going to be a bit of a retool, not a complete rebuild because you do have Olivia Gadsden, but be a bit of a retool for Coach Edwin Jones. And what a great job by his team and his players. Wow, great job upsetting DeWitt in the regionals. And winning first of all, winning a surprise district. A lot of people did not think they would even win the district tournament, even though they were hosting it. But they absolutely annihilated East Lansing, and then took care of a ranked team in Jackson Northwest to get to the regionals. And then they got through the regionals. They were able to beat DeWitt in the semifinals, and then took care of Portage Central in the regional championship to get to the quarterfinals. Last week was the boys' tournament, the boys' championship finals in Orchard Lake St. Mary's, the first school in the state of Michigan to win in all 4 classes. Ever. They have a state title in all 4 classes. In the old Class D, the old Class C, the old Class B, which are now Divisions 4, 3, and 2, and now Division 1, which was the old Class A. Congratulations to them. They were the better team against North Farmington, and been hearing about this. Trey McKinney, been hearing it. Oh, he's a really good player. He's terrific. Well, he played all of 32 minutes in the game. He had 32 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 8 for 11 from the field. Man, he was absolutely terrific. And Orchard Lake St. Mary's, the Division I state champs at 27-1. In Division II, Warren Lincoln took care of Grand Rapids Christian. That was the last of the 4 games last Saturday. Marcus Blackwell had 24 points and 3 assists. His twin brother, Moses Blackwell, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. They finished the season 24-4. I mentioned those 2 teams because those were 2 of the teams that beat East Lansing this season. In Division III, Niles Brandywine won their first state title in boys basketball. They took out Detroit Redford 56-48 to finish 26-3. Jeremiah Palmer, 18 points, 6 rebounds for Brandywine. Congratulations to them. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Niles Brandywine, they're in the state finals in the girls as well. Division III, they're playing at 4 o'clock today. You'll hear it here on WVFN. They play Ypsilanti Arbor Prep. Niles Brandywine took care of Lake City 52-39 back yesterday, or it was on Thursday. And then, so we'll be listening, and we'll be talking to Brian Calloway here about that, because he's from Coloma, down in the southwest portion of the state, and doing some extra work for some newspapers down in southwest Michigan for Niles Brandywine. So we'll ask him about that game and the game coming up today. And in Division 4, one of the great programs in the state of Michigan, Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian, beating Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart 79-59, finished 24-5, another state championship. All 5 starters were in double-figure scoring. Jordan Van Klompenburg, 19 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Keaton Blanker, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists. Wow, 12 assists. Owen Rosendahl, 14 points, 6 rebounds. Akias Gipley, 11 points, 3 rebounds. And Wesley Kamen, who's the nephew of Chris Kamen, of course, the all-time great at Central Michigan, played in the NBA, but was a star at Wyoming Tri-Unity Christian way before that. He ended up with 10 points there. That's rare. You see all 5 players in double figures. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to the teams that made it to the state finals in the girls basketball. Starting with Ishpeming against Kingston at 10 o'clock, Grand Blanc against West Bloomfield at 12:15, Niles Brandywine and Ypsilanti Arbor Prep at 4 o'clock, and then at 6:15 or so, Ann Arbor, Gabriel Richard, and Detroit Edison, PSA. So that's what we got coming up here on the game, 7:30 a.m. WVFN. Coming up, we'll talk to Brian Calloway, the prep sports editor of the Lansing State Journal, LSJ.com. We'll talk about this week in girls basketball and talk about the work he's doing covering Niles Brandywine, not only last week, but this week. That's coming up next here on the game, 7:30 a.m. WVFN and the Lansing Sports Network. Well, welcome back to High School Rewind here on the game, 7:30 a.m. WVFN and the Lansing Sports Network. Brought to you today and all season long by Jeff and Chris Metz and Doubting Industries, as well as the Lansing Sports Commission. Megan Zemer and her great staff at the Lansing Sports Commission. You just heard it there in the commercial spot there. But no matter the sport, the Lansing Sports Commission can make your next event your best event. Plan on something greater. Find out more at lansingsports.org. And Jeff and Chris Metz, Doubting Industries, always interested in individuals that have the drive and desire to be successful in work and in life. Check them out at doubtingindustries.com. You may find a successful future here. Happy to be joined now by Brian Calloway, the prep sports editor of the Lansing State Journal, LSJ.com. On this next to last show of the season, we'll do a season in review show coming up next week. And Brian, you were down at Goebbels High School covering Fowler against Mendon. Just reading the article this week and again this morning. Fowler jumped on him pretty quickly and pretty much cruised the rest of the way. 11-0 start, 23-5 at the end of the first quarter, and then, like you said, cruised all the way to a 51-32 win.
Yeah, well, actually, it was with where you were at. He had Nate Bott down there.
Oh, that's right, Nathaniel Bott. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he was down there. But, yeah, Fowler, pretty much took care of business down there against Minden. And, I remember talking to one of the reporters earlier in the week that covers Minden earlier in the year. And he was just impressed with Fowler and what they were able to do once again to, have another dominant victory in the state tournament, but then also, once again, find their way back into the final stages of the state tournament as well, too. So, yeah, that was just part of what was a very impressive tournament run where if you look at Fowler, just the way that they dominated through the two regional games last week and then also in the quarterfinal as well, too, over Minden to, find their way back to Breslin Center.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they ran into a team that was just simply better in Ishpeming. Man, what a great performance by Ishpeming. They jumped on them early, and they just kept putting it to Fowler, 75-40, and just an unfortunate way to end the season for the Fowler Lady Eagles. They end the season at 24-4, but they just simply were not good enough against Ishpeming. It was Jenna Mackey, 30 points for Ishpeming. They had other Janesa Eagle had 14 points and 4 assists. 23-6 at the end of the first quarter. Game pretty close to being over right then and there, wasn't it?
Yeah, they really jumped on Fowler pretty early on, and just to run, I think it was like 15-2 to end the first quarter that Minden had as well. I mean, that Ishpeming had as well too, and they just had some limp. I mean, they applied the pressure on them as well too, and obviously Fowler played some good competition playing in the CMAC.
Sure,
I'm not sure that they really had seen anything like what they saw from Ishpeming on Thursday night, and like you said, Jenna Mackey. I mean, she was impressive. I mean, they had a lot of impressive players right there. They had some size, they had some length. They were able to get some things done with their press. I mean, they forced 34 turnovers as well, too. So,
my goodness.
I mean, that obviously speaks to what they were able to do because Fowler obviously is a pretty darn good team, and to turn them over 34 times and just perform the way that they did in their first state semifinal appearance as well, too. Very impressive, and kind of shows maybe what some of those Upper Peninsula teams can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody was in double-figure scoring for Fowler. Katie Spicer and Elizabeth Huffnagel each had 8 points for Fowler. But you know what, Nathan George? I mean, he's got a program going. 5 straight years to the semifinals, and pretty much everybody that was on this roster was not a part of the last 2 state title teams. Which occurred in 21 and 22, got to the semis last year, got to the semis in 2019, lost to eventual state champ Adrian Lenawee Christian, and then this year against Ishpeming. They are a program now. They play in a great league in the CMAC, and it just seems like something when they end up, they majority of their schedules in the CMAC. They pretty much play CMAC teams in the district tournament, and it seems like it just comes down to that district championship game against Portland St. Patrick. Had Portland St. Patrick won that game, I got a feeling that they would have been in the semifinals as well as St. Pat's outstanding team as well. It just, Fowler's been able to get them the last now 3 years in the district championship game because that was the toughest game Fowler had up until the semifinals.
No, yeah, it definitely was. And, like you said, Portland St. Patrick, number 2 ranked team in the state. They won the CMAC. They split with Fowler during the regular season as well, too. Mm-hmm. And, they definitely gave Fowler, a few tough battles as well, too. But, Portland St. Patrick, obviously, because a team that could have been there as well, too. But, Fowler, this time of year, Nathan George is, able to, get the most out of his group to, constantly be able to make these runs. And also, like you said, I mean, just kind of the sign of a program where you can lose all 5 of your starters from last year's semifinal team and still end up back in the same spot where your season ended the previous year as well, too, and end up in the Breslin Center as well, too. I mean, I think that's very impressive.
It is, and they've got a program, and they'll be good again next year. The game that we were at Jackson Lumen Christi on Tuesday, man, Holt had chances. They led for 3/4 of the game. It was 14-8 at the end of the first. Holt was ahead 21-17 at the half. And then we're ahead 32-27 at the end of the third quarter. But, man, we had heard how good this Belleville team was, and they're very, very good. And I had been hearing about this freshman named Sydney Savori, and man, she showed why on Tuesday night. Now, I was watching the game. I don't know if you saw the same thing. She made a couple of freshman plays where you could tell that she's a ninth grader. She's only 14, 15 years old. Made some freshman mistakes, but man, she's really, really good. And Holt had a hard time handling her. And when Belleville got challenged again. They were able to make the plays they had to make in the fourth quarter to rally and win a tight one over a game Holt squad. And, man, Holt had their chances. They missed a few shots. They got out-rebounded, which I thought was absolutely key. They got out-rebounded 34-25. Holt had their chances and won. Maybe not necessarily they should have won, but could have won definitely.
No, they were definitely in that game, and like you said, for 3/4 of it, I mean, they pretty much led the entire first 3/4 of that game. And any time that Belleville would hit a shot during that time frame, it seemed like Holt always had an answer and was able to kind of maintain the advantage that they had. And it was really just that run that Belleville had to start the fourth quarter that got them to tie the game. Then they took the lead, and then there was a couple of possessions there where they're even, and then Belleville takes the lead again, and it just Holt couldn't get it back in the back half of the fourth quarter as Belleville was able to finish that game off and get its way to the state semifinals. But, I mean, I think Holt showed quite a bit with what they were able to do this year, considering they lost Janae Tyler from last year's team, and then she was their all-time leading scorer, all-time leading rebounder in program history, and they still get back to the quarterfinals, even with the new coach leading the way as well, too, and getting this group to, buy in and believe that they could get back despite the loss of, a star player like Janae Tyler.
Yeah, definitely, and they just they've got a future too. Olivia Gadsden is a terrific player. She had 8 points. Allie Metzger, 12 points, 4 rebounds. Rima Dozier, she was. She had 7 points in the first half, but only held the 9 points. I thought that was key, too. Belleville seemed to key on her defensively. But, hey, what a great tournament run for Holt and for Rima Dozier. She was absolutely terrific throughout this whole tournament and really her whole career.
Yeah, she was. Obviously played a little bit more in the shadows in past years behind Janae Tyler, but she really stepped up and was a kind of a quieter leader for this team this year. So between Rima Dozier and then you have Claire Tobias, who was a senior as well too, that was a key kind of running the show as a lead guard for them from time to time as well too. I mean, she was a big factor for them as well too. And then Presley Pazika, she had a big moment in the regional final, stepped up for them as well too. So they had some seniors that were able to really kind of help set the program, a new standard for the program, so to speak, with being a part of the back-to-back state quarterfinalist team when, Holt had gone pretty much nearly 50 years between regional titles before they broke through last year. Now they duplicated that this year again.
Brian, something that I've noticed that's been happening in the fourth quarter of these games, it seems like whenever a team gets a lead and then they get down to about 5 minutes to go, and then they start playing keep away. They're not going to a full-on delay, stall, four corners offense, something like that. But they're going to keep away. And I think the new foul rule has something to do with that because Belleville did that. You've seen other teams do that on the boys and girls do that. If you have even a 2 to 4 point lead, you're seeing teams go to a keep away offense where you make the defense chase you and I think that maybe with the new foul rule, that's kind of encouraged that because then you got to commit 2 to 3 or sometimes even more fouls to get into the penalty. I think that's a downside of this new foul rule. I know officials like it because one less thing they have to worry about. They say that the games go quicker, and I've heard coaches say the same thing. But man. I think it was more dramatic when you had the 1-and-1 when you got to 7 team fouls for the half and then 10 fouls, 2 shots for 10 fouls. What do you think about that? What have you seen regarding the new foul? What do you like? What don't you like?
Well, I think the one thing about it is the absence of the 1-on-1. I think it can make it more difficult for the team that's trailing to come back.
Right.
Just because the other team is automatically getting 2 free throws after on the 5th foul and on. Whereas with the 1-and-1, you could try to foul them and hope that they miss the front end and then try to come back. But as soon as you foul, you're automatically giving them 2 free throws. So they have 2 opportunities to add a point to the board and extend their lead as well, too. And I think this is kind of why a lot of coaches out there would like to see some kind of shot clock just to make the other team have to do things just because of the difficulty that it does make to come back if you're the trailing team. If you're down by 6 and with 3 minutes left in the game and you have to start fouling, by the time you get to that 5th foul, you're giving up 2 free throws every time. So it's going to make your comeback a little bit more of an uphill battle as opposed to the 1-and-1 that you could have for the 7th, 8th, and 9th foul before they get into the double bonuses there as well too. But I do like the flow of the game that this has created. The fact that the resets after every quarter as well too, so that's a good thing as well too. So I didn't mind the rule. I don't mind the new foul rule.
Okay.
I think eventually maybe we'll see a shot clock. I know obviously that's a push from a lot of coaches.
Yep.
Not sure from the athletic director standpoint, how they feel about that, because obviously when you're a athletic director, that's just one more person that you have to have at the table to
exactly.
manage things. And you have to make sure that they're following the game and making sure that they're resetting the shot clock at the right time as well.
Exactly.
Too. So that just adds another dimension, and it's hard to find people to help when you're running events and things like that these days as well too. So I see from that perspective the challenge that they could pose as well too. Just finding someone that you're going to be able to have to run the shot clock for a varsity game, just because it's hard to find help these days. So I think there's some pluses and there's some minuses. But all in all, I didn't mind the rule. I was a little apprehensive about it the first game that I saw because I felt like that game went by pretty. It actually kind of dragged on with the new rules. But after that, it seemed to be a lot cleaner. And maybe it was just one of those things where players and teams were kind of getting used to the new rule as well, too.
Well, yeah, you also have to give it time to work or to not work. And logistically, you said it. Logistically, it's easier at some schools, like the bigger schools, and tougher at smaller schools. Like I was at Perry watching the district opening night doubleheader, and they barely had enough room for the person running the scoreboard, the PA announcer, who was also the official scorer. The PA announcer couldn't announce who had the basket. She had to concentrate on doing the official scorebook, and then you had the score for one team on one end and the scorer on the other end. With a person with a shot clock, you got to have another person there, and logistically, it's very difficult to do. And also, there's cost involved too, because you can't just have one shot clock. You got to have 2. No. You got to have one at each end of the floor, and you might even need to have one at center court, right where the possession arrow is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got schools have to be able to, add these shot clocks to, to their baskets. And that's another additional cost as well too. In addition to, finding somebody to run this thing as well too. So it's there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, when you bring something like that into the fold. But, we have seen, there's been a couple of tournaments that some of our area teams have played in. They played in shot clock tournaments
right.
over the holiday break. I think Olivet's been one of those programs that has played in one down in Spring Arbor. I think there's been some other tournaments as well, too, where it's kind of been tested out a little bit. But obviously, Spring Arbor is a college campus, and, there's a shot clock in college, so they're kind of used to running these things.
Yeah, something to consider going forward, but it's tougher than people think. I know some states do have a shot clock, and what kind of shot clock do you use? 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 45 seconds? That's something that's got to get figured out. All right, Brian, before I let you go, I got to talk about the boys' championships that occurred last week and the game that you covered. You're from Coloma, down in the southwest portion of the state, and Niles Brandywine won the state championship for the first time ever in Division, Division 3, I believe. Yep.
Division 3. Yep.
Division 3. And you were covering that game for the newspapers down in Southwest Michigan, and I believe for the South Bend paper.
The South Bend Tribune.
Yeah. So what was that like for you, covering a team from your neck of the woods, so to speak?
Oh, it's kind of interesting just for the fact that when I was in high school, that was a school that was in the league that my school played in. So I had made plenty of trips down to Niles Brandywine when I was competing in sports, back in the day. So it was kind of cool to see a program like that, do something that's never been done before. The program had only won, I think, the only other state championships for that school were in baseball, back in 84 and maybe 2001. And so that's the first state title that school has won in any other sport outside of baseball. The first one in basketball. Their girls basketball team is still alive as well too.
Yeah, that's right.
Playing today at the Breslin Center, so they could have the double dip and win 2 state titles in back-to-back weeks at Breslin Center as well too, which would be pretty cool for them. So that was a pretty cool moment for that team, and obviously they had one of those stories that you seem to follow in high school sports where a team makes an unexpected run to the Final Four the year prior and then, breaks through the next year and finishes the job. We've seen things like that all the time with high school sports, with some of those special teams that we're able to cover. So that was kind of the story with that team this season.
Jeremiah Palmer, 18.6 rebounds for Niles Brandywine in the victory. By the way, Niles Brandywine's girls, they play at 4 o'clock this afternoon or thereabouts against Ypsilanti Arbor Prep. So Brian Calloway, Prep Sports Editor of the Lansing State Journal, LSJ.com. Brian, thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you next week where we'll do a season in review for the season in boys and girls basketball. Thanks again, sir.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Brian Calloway, Prep Sports Editor of the Lansing State Journal. All right, we got to take a break and we'll come back. We'll wrap this up and get to the MHSA Girls Basketball Championships in about 10 minutes or so. It's coming up on the game, 7:30 AM WVFN and the Lansing Sports Network. This is High School Rewind.
WVFN, Lansing Sports Leader.
Welcome back to High School Rewind here on the game, 7:30 AM WVFN, brought to you by Jeff and Chris Metz and Dowding Industries and by the Lansing Sports Commission. If you're wondering what your future holds and you're not going to college, you found out college just isn't for you, check out the future that skilled trades can offer you. You'll be surprised. Check them out at dowdingindustries.com. And by the Lansing Sports Commission, no matter the sport, the Lansing Sports Commission can make your next event your best event. Plan on something greater. Find out more at lansingsports.org. All right, coming up in just a few minutes, it's the Division 4 championship game between Ishpeming and Kingston. That's followed up about 12:15 or so by the Division 1 championship between Grand Blanc and West Bloomfield. And then following that, after an interlude of about an hour and a half, 2 hours, at 4 o'clock, it's Niles Brandywine against Ypsilanti Arbor Prep in Division 3. And then the Division 2 championship, Detroit Edison PSA against Ann Arbor Gabriel Richard. Now, here on WVFN, we'll have all the first 3 games in its entirety. Then at 6:15 or so, we will air the Division 3 championship game. However, because of the Michigan State men's basketball game playing network coverage beginning at 4:30 and that game starting at 5:30, the MSU hockey game, the Big Ten championship game against Michigan, that has been moved over here to WVFN, and we will hit the air for that championship game. Michigan State and Michigan from Mount Ice Arena will hit the air at 7:30 here on WVFN. Over on 1240 WJIM and Classic Rock 94.9 MMQ, it is a special Live at Breslin with Steve Goff. That's on at 3 o'clock on 1240 and 94.9 MMQ, 3 to 4:30. And the network coverage of Michigan State against North Carolina in the NCAA men's basketball tournament, that hits the air at 4:30. So that's what we got coming up today. I want to thank Brian Calloway, Prep Sports Editor of the Lansing State Journal, LSJ.com. And thank you for listening. This has been High School Rewind here on the game, 7:30 AM WVFN and the Lansing Sports Network. Our season wrap-up show is coming up next Saturday, and we'll talk to you then. Enjoy the state championships, everyone.